Indeed, I am up north in Wisconsin, as they say, on Greater Bass Lake. So at the A-frame cottage, they call it the A-frame of our friend Inga.
Fantastic.
Indeed, I am up north in Wisconsin,
is that
as
me?
they say, on Greater Bass Lake.
That is.
That's
So
okay.
at the,
All right. Hi, everybody. Okay, let me just go over to.
oh, the joy of mute.
I know, right? So, everyone in the chat, say hello.
Indeed, I am up north in Wisconsin.
Nope, that one was me. That second one
Okay,
was
that's you.
the second
okay.
one was me.
Awesome.
We're all over the place. I mean, I was just up north in Wisconsin, and then now I am back in Oregon, Wisconsin, and I'm going back to up north. So I did a private party last night, and injected it into my up north tour. So just yesterday morning, I was doing a live stream up in Chippewa Falls. So anyway, now we're home. Rhodey is here as well. Today, we are talking about the idea of being triggered and how do we appreciate it, right?
That's right.
And we talked a little bit last week, and the conversation last week of when the thing shows back up introduced this idea of being triggered and kind of what we do about it. And we're kind of taking it one step further by like not only how do we navigate that, but then how do we actually appreciate it. And I played my song The Lighthouse, which is this idea about inside all of us, we have this light that is not judging. It never judges you, and it fully supports you. And within the song, Joe and I talked, and within the song, there is an element of being triggered in that if you're the boat and you're going to sea in choppy waters and you're searching for something, right? And so I wanted to play the song The Lighthouse again, and thought that maybe we could all, as I play it, we could focus on moments in our lives when we have been triggered and we felt like we were looking for a lighthouse.
Love.
What do you say?
Love. I say amen to all of that. And that, really, I would invite everybody to close their eyes while you play and just see what comes as you're listening.
Lighthouse will always call.
Did you get chills? I got chills.
I did get chills. And in fact, when you started playing, the wind picked up. And
Oh,
it just hit me with the rustling of the trees that I am sitting right where the boat could hit the shore. I'm not near a lighthouse, but I'm surrounded by beautiful light with the tribe and with the people that are here. And I think that, it's yeah. And now the wind is dying down a little.
that's
So
pretty cool.
yeah, metaphorically, I think that there's a lot to that when we look at how energetic, connections are made. Um, but one of the lyrics in your song is, and I can't remember exactly how you said it, where the light is always there.
Yeah. So, you might forget me, but I'll never change when you're coming too strong. And that idea of getting triggered. And like when our lives get just kind of like, it's just like not a good hum. We've talked about hums.
Yeah.
Angela has we've liked that word hum, but sometimes the hum is like not a hum. It's like this annoying. You ever watch Dumb and Dumber? And they're like, "You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?" I'm not going to do it right now, but that idea of when you're triggered, that's kind of if you get a little quiet, you're like, oh, that's the sound. And so it says when you're coming too strong, and that's what it feels like when just things aren't right. And then it says, I'll still light your way. And we've talked last time about that knowing of there is this full, you're fully supported. You really are. And if you believe that, it allows some of this triggering that happens because we're humans to take place, but then you can come back to the lighthouse more easily.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll still light your way. The light is always there. And then I said later on, my light never wavers, so you can explore. My light never wavers. Yeah.
Yes. And, as we consider the relationship of the light to our own selves, right? How we look at our conscious self in a way as the light, that
Yeah.
our soul is that light, it doesn't waver. It waits for us. And it waits for us to show up the way that it knows that we can. And, the idea with the lighthouse is that the light rotates and we see the light differently at different points in our lives, or when we're at a different place on the water, or when we're looking at the lighthouse in a different way. We either see the light directly or we see it as it's rotating and we see the shadow or we see just a piece of it. But the light is always there. Our soul is always there.
It is always there. The idea, so Aton just put something in the chat, and it kind of makes me think of many times we've brought up concepts where there is a negative connotation to the word. And we have consistently, I think, and let me know if you guys think I'm right in this thought process. We, as a group, have consistently what's the word, combated or contradicted those ideas of some of the words having only
Right.
one type of connotation, whether
Yes.
positive or negative.
Yes.
And the word trigger actually has a negative connotation in my mind. And Aton just said, I feel like the light could be a trigger. And when he said that in the chat, I'm thinking, oh, actually, when that lighthouse is rotating and the light is rotating and we see it, or maybe we don't, I mean, it could also be a triggering, being triggered could be something good, right?
Well, it is. Absolutely. So what I read into that for me, and this is what I love about our conversations, because we don't always see things the same, but we have the same outcome in our thinking. Like we get to the same result, even though we see and process things differently, right? And what I have come to learn, and the topic is today, how do I appreciate being triggered? is that I have gratitude for the trigger.
Yes.
So as Aton says that the light could be the trigger for sure, because it wants to be seen and healed. So when something is triggered, something needs to be healed. So having gratitude for the trigger
Right.
is a piece of the light, right? So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So, I think you had a list. Is that right?
I
About,
do.
yeah.
About why we really what are common triggers that may cause us to go somewhere in our subconscious and get triggered, right? What are they? Rejection, of course, betrayal, when you feel like you've been treated unfairly, challenging the belief that you have or that you carry with you, helplessness or loss of control, being excluded or ignored, disapproval or criticism, feeling unwanted or unneeded, feeling smothered or too needed, insecurity, loss of independence. These are all ways that we as humans get triggered. And inside of each one of those is an opportunity to better understand ourselves and have more awareness as to where that trigger is coming from.
I love it. Can we back way up and just make sure we're connecting with everyone? So, what happens when you get triggered? Many times you don't have room to even start to think about, I'm going to appreciate this. Like, that
Not at
doesn't,
all.
like, many of us, like, don't even, and, we could be lucky and fortunate to have friends that maybe help us and see. And I'm starting to move in. I know personally, I'm moving into a zone where I'm like, I know this is good. It just feels like shit right now.
Yep.
But there was a time when I couldn't even say those words. It just felt shitty.
Yes.
And my brain would
Absolutely.
get all wrapped up in all of that stuff. So for us to talk about appreciating being triggered, many of us like don't, and I say us just because we're all humans. There's times when we get triggered where we can't even that's not even on the horizon, the word appreciate,
No,
right?
it's not. No, and you just made me think of something. And that is that we have many opportunities in our lives to really listen, to listen when we're triggered. But sometimes the human isn't ready. Sometimes the soul might say, I see it. I'm going to trigger you. You're going to heal from this. We got it. Sometimes the human's not ready, but we will get triggered when we're ready if we have the awareness and we listen and we see it. That's where the appreciation can come in. Once you start to build that awareness, then you can go, wait a second, I got that. I got that. But that won't happen all of the time. You might not be ready. And I am a prime example of that in the last couple of months. I mean, here I am, I am a dot connector. I'm a life coach. I'm a mind shift mentor. I'm doing all these things. And I got completely triggered back into this subconscious disease to please fawn response that I have for 2 months. I wasn't ready to see it right away because I still had more shit to figure out. More things needed to happen to take me there. But now that I got it, holy cow, sister, do I have it? Like, I get it now. But back in frickin' May, I was like, oh no, what is going on? And I wasn't ready.
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say too is this idea that we hopefully we all adopt. Not hopefully. There is a sense of there is a when things happen, it is at the perfect time. It just is, and I believe that wholeheartedly. That's why I also don't believe in luck. I used to believe in luck. I don't believe in luck. And that shift in mindset actually has allowed me to appreciate when I am triggered, because it means that I was ready to work on something, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's this like backwards kind of thing. If something is negative that happens, now here's the thing. If something negative happens and you're triggered, let's say it's a negative trigger. Let's say it's something that doesn't feel good. Okay. If we adopt this idea that it's the timing was perfect and it's helping me learn something, and I have a lighthouse inside me that knows exactly where we're going, and I'm fully supported, even if none of those things are true, let's just like have a little like devil's advocate. If none of those things are true that I just said, uh, I would be in a better mood and I would navigate that trigger much better if I believed those things, even
Yeah.
if they weren't true, even
Right.
if it wasn't a lighthouse, even if our soul didn't understand and know our purpose and all that, like I would navigate that trigger way better and I would enjoy navigating the trigger. So
Yes.
it's like a win-win-win,
It
right?
is. It absolutely is. You talk about enjoying it. And, there's so much when you're grounded in awareness of a deep knowing that it is for a reason, then you can do it with joy. Even if whatever it is kind of sucky. As Aton said, moving through the muck. Moving through the muck does not have to, it doesn't mean it's going to be fun, but you can enjoy what's coming from that.
I love that he said that because that is one of the things I tried to implement in my course that I taught. So I taught this summer organic chemistry, and I that was one of my biggest things is this idea of being comfortable not knowing everything, and it can be fun. It can, I mean, they just, my students, like, bless their hearts, like I'm like the
They're probably
crazy.
like, what the fuck,
I
Dr. Kelsey?
know
What are you
I'm the
talking
crazy
about?
one of leading. I was holding the torch and follow me. It's gonna be weird. You're not gonna know anything, and that's the fun part of figuring something out and uncovering something that you didn't know, and it looks really uncomfortable because you don't know, but it can actually be fun, and gain. So
Yeah,
anyway.
it's true though. The wisdom that you gain when you let go of any weird outcome that you think you're going to have is it, I hate to use the word, it's organic. I don't really hate to use the word, but it works, right?
You're so punny.
It is though. It's organic when it happens naturally.
Right.
When it happens naturally, you're not forcing it to happen, you're allowing it to happen.
Big. That's big what you just said, because when we get triggered many times, and I know I
Oh,
do this, I go into this idea of I need to put effort in to make it happen a certain way. And
yes.
instead
Forces.
of, yeah, and don't, no need to force, you understand it happened. Let's talk about one of the ones you brought up, and then we'll kind of walk through the process of it. And we're doing this also so that way we can all listen back if any of us experience this. Okay, so let's take we can do when someone disappoints us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do that.
Well, you've got the cutest little smirk on your face. Do you want to go with
That's the one.
what's in your head?
That one, or we could do rejection, but I don't
Or
know.
not feeling included, not being included would be one that
Not
happens.
not feeling included.
Not, yep, not being included. I
Not
mean,
being.
there is a difference between not feeling included and not being included. So being excluded.
Let's do that one. That sounds great. Let's do that one.
Okay, well, I guess I can actually speak from experience because back, I don't know, time flies. Um, I don't even remember what year anymore, but I was triggered on um a weekend with some girlfriends because I wasn't included, or I thought I wasn't included. And what happened was they went away for the weekend, and all of a sudden I see a picture on Facebook, right? Oh my gosh, let's talk about how social media can play wicked mind games with us.
Right.
And all of a sudden there's 6 people at this weekend, and I'm like, what the heck? Hey, where am I? And I wouldn't have been able to go anyway because I had plans that weekend. But my little girl was completely triggered of being excluded. And I messaged my friend and I said, "Hey, I saw the picture. It actually, and I used the word, it triggered me, and because I can use that word, and but I got me." And she sent a note back. "Let's talk about it. It's okay. We can talk about it." I'm like, "No, no, I've got me. I can work through this." And it has catapulted into so many beautiful things because I was able to realize that, one, I couldn't have been there anyway. Two, I needed to go back and work on not taking things personally, not making assumptions, right? All of these pieces that remind me to stay connected to the core of who I am, which doesn't need to take things personally and doesn't need to make assumptions. That I was not excluded on purpose, because actually they did ask if I could come. I don't remember. I don't remember the conversation. And I got to the point where I was like, holy shit, I forgot the conversation so that I could be triggered, so that I could go deeper in this. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Heal that piece of me as a little girl that felt excluded often growing up. So working through the don't be excluded, you're excluded trigger brings up so many other pieces that we have the opportunity to connect. Now, I didn't do that right away. And that's the key. I sat with that feeling of being excluded for me then a good couple of days. And I wallowed in my sorrow and I talked to my partner about it. And I'm like, what the hell? What is up with this? And then I realized, wait a second, what am I doing? This isn't even at the core of who I am. So I then said, thank you. I needed to remember that being triggered teaches me something.
Oh, I like that. And so it's more at the end that then you could appreciate.
Yeah, when I all of a sudden realized that I was getting something from this, that I
Right.
was healing something deeper,
Mm,
then I could actually dig into what it is. Because when you're in the midst of the trigger, when you're in the midst of the zone of
right.
turbulence, or when you're feeling like shit, you don't have the head capacity to figure it out. You have
Right.
to allow it to flow through you, allow it to flow through the muck, move through the muck, allow it to flow through you so that you can see it from the witness standpoint, right? I was being a victim
Right.
at that point. I was like the victim and the judge,
Right.
but I was then able to see it from the witness standpoint.
Right. 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 That makes sense. Well, I like this idea of because it's the same for me. Like after I get triggered, it's really not until like I'm starting to become aware when I get triggered that I will eventually appreciate it. Just isn't right then. And Yeah, definitely felt that. For me, I've had a recent one where I was really disappointed by someone. I listened to their words, and their words said something, and their actions said another. And and the reason it disappointed me was because I let my brain fill in with what they had first told me. And yeah, and then when I started to, and it happened gradually, right? So for me, when I got disappointed by someone, it happened gradually. And I started to realize, I was like, why do I feel weird about all this? I'm like, oh, well, if what they said was true, right, then these things would be happening, and they aren't. And so over time, I realized there's a disconnect between words and actions. And it really upset me because then my brain went into full on like disappointed. It's black and white, right? It's so not what they said. And then you start to go, and can I trust them, right? That is to me a bad sucky trigger where it brings in all these ideas. And typically when we get triggered, and this happens for me, is if you really look at how far down it goes to some of our core beliefs that we're still trying to heal.
Mhm.
Whether you think you aren't worthy or lovable or something, it kind of can tie in with some of those core thoughts, but they surface as very specific things to a condition. And that's what happened to me. It started to just spiral. And I was like, whoa, whoa. We don't need to go that far. That's not what's happening. But what ended up happening, so as I worked through it, um, and that's actually where the song Lighthouse came from. And the Lighthouse was more of a song that was telling me that I am fully supported. It was kind of it's a really cool thing that happened when I wrote that. And I started to realize that I appreciated this trigger, and I really did, because I thought that I had healed all of that stuff, and I didn't know that I could reach a deeper level of understanding with some of it.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah. So, again, the appreciation of being triggered and kind of going through something that doesn't feel great happened also at the end for me.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things that you brought up that are so key. My trigger was an immediate thing, like it was an event, and
Okay.
it happened like this.
Yeah.
And it did bring in that, my little girl who didn't feel worthy and valued.
Right.
Yours happened gradually. So that is one of the things to keep in mind, that a trigger can be on an event, or it can be a gradual happening that all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, words and actions aren't matching here. This isn't right. And it takes you down. So it can be either one of those things, really fast or slow and gradual. Either way, though, what you got to was the core limiting belief that was like, hey, see me again. Woohoo, I'm back. Right. And
Like, yeah.
no, I
Where
see you.
it colors everything. When it pops back up, you now have a lens of looking for things that prove it to be right.
Oh,
So if you think that you aren't worthy, if you think that you aren't lovable, you will find it. And you find it
exactly.
within that situation that triggered you, and then and then your brain just starts
And it
to
grows.
yeah, and so you have to, whoa, stop, pausing,
Yes.
pausing.
Yeah, you
Okay.
give it a life. That's how I term that. You give it a life. All of a sudden it shows up, and now you've given it a life because you put in your energy to it. You're putting your attention to it. So what inside of that life are you giving it? The awareness that you've got it, or the ability for it to continue to take you down,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And I think that those two, what happens is, in order to get to the allowing it to, or saying, like, hey, I see you, that's really the observer kind of thing. There's no judgment. There's nothing. It's just, I'm going to step out of this a bit and, like, hey, I see that you're here. So we're going to deal with this. But it's cool. Like, but we really can't have you around. Or the other one is when you're just in the middle of it, right? And then you start to judge yourself, or you become a victim of it,
Right.
right? And it's
Right.
a cycle we've talked about.
Ooh. I'm really happy that you just said that, because the other thing is the idea that people trigger us.
Oh,
And
yes,
we need to chat about that, because
we do.
people's actions will trigger us. However, we really actually allow that to happen.
Mm,
So it may be that they did a thing, but the way that we react in a triggered way, it's an allowance. We are allowing that trigger. We're allowing that person to take us someplace. That's the subconscious.
right.
And people don't really trigger us. We allow the trigger to happen. Their
Right.
actions may not align to what we know is part of our truth, or what we've worked so hard to heal. And all of a sudden we're triggered because of an action. But that is subconscious. We allow it to happen. And when we allow it to happen, there's a reason. That's when you get to give it, like, hey, wait, I got this. Give it some gratitude. Let it flow through you. and then you will be able to see it from the witness standpoint. But
Yes,
it's
I
kind of a
love it.
misnomer that
I love that
people
you just said
trigger.
that. Right. Well, because it's obviously not, it's not my fault. It's their fault.
I love what you just did.
It's not my fault. It's their fault. It's so much easier to say that. And sometimes I wish it was true. You know?
Uh-huh.
Wish it wasn't my fault. But there's really no fault ever. It's
Mm-mm.
simply someone did something that disappointed you or it made you feel left out or whatever it is. And it's your decision what you do with that
Right.
feeling,
Right.
right? And I think that by doing that we we talked about this briefly, Joe. This idea of control over our lives, right? And I said something, I think I said to you, I was like, I'm kind of glad that I have no control over anyone else, or what they do except for myself, like what actions I take, because that's a lot of responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yes.
if I say that someone triggered me, that means that I feel like I have some sense of control over whether or not they do an action, right?
Hmm. And
Well,
you give them a lot of power too.
yeah, and it's like,
Hmm.
no, I only have it's only how I respond or how I act upon it. And that's the only thing that I'm really like in control of. So, yeah, they can, you can do what you want, but I won't allow this, to
Yeah.
affect me, or we just won't spend as much time together, or,
Right.
whatever,
Right.
or we'll talk about it like you did with your friends. And then, yeah, it's,
Yeah. It's so interesting because dynamics with friends and with people in our lives are so based on your ability to communicate with them. And it's so funny to me that I had brought this trigger to my friend
right,
and I said, "Look, I was triggered."
right,
And there was another event. It happens to be with a group of girlfriends that, energetically, I just don't spend a lot of time with. And this one friend I do, but the rest of the friends I don't. And she came to me and she said, "Hey, by the way, this weekend, I can't do X because I'm going to brunch with these women." She goes, "And I didn't want you to be triggered. So I thought I would tell you." And I was like, "Hold up." I know so dearly what you're trying to do. And I love that you love my heart and you want to help me that way. But you do not get to talk to me about my own triggers. You don't get to tell me that you don't want me to be triggered. You don't have that power, And it made me laugh, but it made me go, holy crap, there are people. She meant it so sweetly, but yet it was like, what? It was the weirdest thing that she then turned around and threw it back to me in a different way, trying to protect me. That's false protection, man. I don't need that. Right. So it was, I mean, people are beautifully interesting. And so it's the communication and
wow.
what we do with that that takes us to the next level. And I said that to her. I'm like, "Hey, you don't need to worry about me. I got me. You don't have to tell me about my own triggers." And in
Right,
fact, I put that one to bed. I'm good.
right, right.
You know,
Gosh, that's
it's,
so
yeah,
funny.
it is. And it gave me a
Wow.
whole new sense of appreciation
Right.
for the idea of communicating clearly
Yeah.
in any relationship. Right.
Super important.
Yeah.
It's super
Yeah.
important.
Gosh, there's one
Wow.
other thing
I'm
that comes
like,
up.
that comment, I'm like, because I think at one point and another, I think most of us have all thought that we've been trying to be helpful by saying certain things and trying to be aware of other people's feelings, and it's important to be aware of other people's feelings, but because and yes, we know that they are in charge of their own feelings, but you do need to care if you want to have a relationship with someone, and yeah, that's so interesting. She had no idea, or he had no idea, that what they said was relaying to you that they think that they have the power to trigger you.
Right.
And
that I'm not secure, grounded enough in myself to handle it. So they got to warn me and it could trigger me. Yeah. It was all very interesting. And I caught it right away. That was the cool thing. Like my catcher's mitt was
yeah,
ready, you know?
I love that. I love
I
that.
caught it right away.
Oh, wow.
Something else, Kelsey, that just it hit me a little bit ago. And this is so interesting because we talk a lot about how triggers are subconscious habits coming back or core limiting beliefs that have not been dealt with or need to be shifted. So the other thing that goes with this is that you might know something consciously. You know, in your core, you're grounded in the knowing of something consciously, but all of a sudden something happens and your subconscious is like, ha, forget that conscious knowing. I'm going to be triggered. And you can actually know something consciously and still be subconsciously triggered. So it's important to understand not to beat yourself up when it happens and to move through it.
Yes. So let's take our two examples. So with yours, with you were left out of that, but apparently they asked you, but whatever. You said that it brought up a sense of like your little girl from when you were feeling maybe not worthy and those kinds of things. That's the subconscious. Those are things and lessons that you learned and are just there, right? Subconsciously.
Yeah.
So that came to the surface where consciously you don't feel that way. Like you feel worthy, right? Same thing with me when I got disappointed.
Really hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same thing. I all of a sudden it brought up to me that, because this person said these things and I believed them, and then the actions didn't turn out that way, and it triggered for me this idea that for me, mine, maybe not deserving of love and not feeling worthy, right, of that. So those are subconscious, because consciously I am at a level where I'm really happy with, where I feel really good, but sometimes there's a little crack and it comes through strong. And that's why we talked about this today, this idea of once we get through that trigger, once we heal, we go deeper, we can really appreciate the trigger because we've healed at a deeper level some of those subconscious thoughts that we don't even know are still present, and we don't fully know what angle they'll be triggered at, right? Like there's different angles of approach, and as we keep healing them at all the different ways that they get triggered, we just become stronger and more centered and the best versions of ourselves, right?
That is correct. That's right. And can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay, good. Because as we learn to be more centered in ourselves and more grounded in our own truth, we can catch the triggers faster, let them flow through us, and move along. We don't have to stay in that space for too long. We have the choice to get out. And it's a beautiful choice to stay conscious and move through.
Oh, I think those were great ending words to today's lesson. This was fabulous. Oh,
well, I'm hoping you can hear me because it looks like my internet's being a little wonky all of a sudden.
We can still hear you. It just cut out, but we can still hear you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Maybe I'll stop my video.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Lyrical Lessons for Life. We will see you next Friday at 11:45 a.m. And Joe, your background is beautiful with the lake.
It's so much love and light to everybody. Really have a great weekend. And Kelsey, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you. I always get surprised, but not surprised. I always leave these going, wow. And now it doesn't surprise me anymore. I just get super
I know.
excited to come hang out on Friday with all of you. So this was fantastic.
Exactly. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, sure. Bye, you guys.